This week on Irish Bandit Revolution, we take a trip back to the Shire and back to Middle-earth as we take a look at one of my all-time favorite trilogies in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Irish Bandit Revolution begins now. Welcome back to another edition of Irish Bandit Revolution. I hope everyone is having a great week. I'm doing pretty well myself. I, as always, am your host, the one, the only, the second Irish Bandit. This week on the show, we are taking a look at one of my all-time favorite trilogies. There have been so many great trilogies over the years in the realm of film, and this one, I think, stands head and shoulders above all of them. It tells a wonderful, cohesive story from the very beginning to the very end. And there was a time where people thought that the book series that this was based on could not be translated into a good movie. They tried it before in the 70s with an animated feature. Did fairly well. I don't recall if I ever watched it, but I know they adapted the first two books of the series, made it one movie, and we're going to do a third one, but Ralph Bakshi just didn't do it for some reason. I'll have to look into that one. But of course, we are talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Absolutely wonderful trilogy. Again, one of my favorites, and one of my all-time favorite movies just happens to be in the trilogy itself. So we're going to get to that quite quickly. Now, with most of my retrospectives, I have the same format. I talk about the movie, then I talk about specifics of the movie, like director, producer. But because these three movies shared basically everything from director, composer, producer, editor, actors, everything, I'm going to save that for the very end of the video, and we're just going to talk about the three movies first of all. So, only one way that we can kick that off, and we have to talk about the very first movie in the trilogy, that being The Fellowship of the Ring. So before we talk about the synopsis of Fellowship of the Ring, let's just quickly talk about the movies overall. Set in Middle-earth, the story tells of the Dark Lord Sauron, who is seeking the One Ring. The ring has found its way to young hobbit Frodo Baggins. The fate of Middle-earth hangs in the balance as Frodo and 8 companions who form the Fellowship of the Ring begin their journey to Mount Doom in the land of Mordor, the only place where the ring can be destroyed. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Okay, now let's talk about the Fellowship of the Ring. Not the Fellowship, but the movie itself. I think you know what I'm talking about. In the Second Age of Middle-earth, the lords of elves, dwarves, and men are given rings of power. Unbeknownst to them, the Dark Lord Sauron forges the One Ring in Mount Doom, infusing into it a great part of his power to dominate, through it and at a distance, the other rings, so he might conquer Middle-earth. A final alliance of men and elves battles Sauron's forces in Mordor, where Prince Isildur of Gondor, I think I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but if I am, let me know in the comment section down below, severs Sauron's fingers and the ring with it, thereby destroying his physical form. With Sauron's first defeat, the Third Age of Middle-earth begins. Unfortunately, the ring's influence corrupts Isildur, and rather than destroy the ring, Isildur takes it for himself. I'm not pronouncing his name again. Forget that. He is later killed by orcs, and the ring is lost for 2,500 years until it's found by Gollum, one of my favorite characters, but we'll talk about him come the Two Towers, who owns it for 5 centuries. The ring is then found by a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, which we see in the Hobbit movies. And just a quick side note here, I'm not going to be talking about the Hobbit movies because I've only seen An Unexpected Journey, which I loved. I've also seen Desolation of Smaug, which was boring. And I have not seen the Battle of Five Armies, I think it is. I know it's been a while. 60 years later, Bilbo celebrates his 111th birthday at the Shire, reuniting with his old friend Gandalf the Grey. Bilbo reveals that he intends to leave the Shire for one last adventure, and he leaves his inheritance, including the ring, to his nephew Frodo. Although Bilbo has begun to become corrupted by the ring and tries to keep it for himself, Gandalf intervenes. Gandalf, suspicious of the ring, tells Frodo to keep it secret and to keep it safe. That's some of Ian McKellen's best line readings right there. Gandalf then investigates the ring, discovers its true identity, and returns to warn Frodo. Gandalf also learns that Gollum was tortured by the orcs, and that Gollum uttered 2 words during his torture: Shire and Baggins. And hearing Gollum just yell that is just bone-chilling. Gandalf instructs Frodo to leave the Shire, accompanied by his gardener, Samwise Gamgee, one of the best companions you could ever have. Fight me. Gandalf rides to Isengard to meet with fellow wizard Saruman the White, but learns that he has joined forces with Sauron, who has unleashed the Ringwraiths to find Frodo. After a brief battle, Saruman imprisons Gandalf. Frodo and Sam are joined by fellow hobbits, Merry and Pippin, the comic relief of the movie, and I've met Billy Boyd, and wow, he's just as funny in person. They evade the Ringwraiths, arriving in Bree, where they are to meet with Gandalf. However, Gandalf never arrives, and they are instead aided by a ranger named Strider, a friend of Gandalf's, who escorts them to Rivendell. The hobbits are ambushed by the Ringwraiths, and one stabs Frodo with a cursed Morgul blade. Arwen, an elf and Strider's betrothed, comes to Frodo's aid and successfully takes him to Rivendell, where he is healed. Frodo meets Gandalf, who escaped Isengard on the back of a giant eagle. This raises a whole bunch of huge questions, which I'll get to at the end of the video. So, Arwen's father, Lord Elrond, played by Hugo Weaving, you can tell instantly how intimidating Elrond was, holds a council to decide that decides the ring must be destroyed in Mount Doom. Of course, because I think that's what everybody said. That part has a great scene with Gimli, one of my favorite characters, trying to destroy the ring with his axe, and axe just exploding in a million pieces. While the members argue, Frodo volunteers to take the ring, accompanied by Gandalf. So, I'm just running on a sentence there. While the members argue, Frodo volunteers to take the ring. There we go. Accompanied by Gandalf, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Elf Legolas, Dwarf Gimli, Boromir, played by Sean Bean. You should instantly know his fate as soon as I say Sean Bean. Of Gondor, and Strider, who is revealed to be Aragorn, Isildur's heir and the rightful king of Gondor. Bilbo gives Frodo his sword Sting. Also gives him some mithril as well, but doesn't mention that there. The Fellowship of the Ring sets off, but Saruman's magic forces them to travel through the mines of Moria, much to Gandalf's displeasure, but much to Gimli's delight, because, that's pretty much his ancestral home. The Fellowship discovers that the dwarves within Moria have been slain, and are then attacked by orcs and a cave troll, which has one of Bjormir's best lines. Wonderful. They have a cave troll. They defeat them, but are confronted by an ancient demon called a Balrog. Not Balrog from Street Fighter fame. Gandalf casts the Balrog into a vast chasm, but it drags Gandalf down to the darkness with it. And then, again, one of Ian McKellen's best lines. Fly, you fools! Gandalf! This isn't going to be me reenacting the movie, although that would be pretty entertaining if you ask me, but that's me. The rest of the Fellowship, now commanded by Aragorn, reaches Lorien, home to elves Gladriel and Celeborn. Gladriel privately informs Frodo that only he can complete the quest, and that one of his friends will try to take the ring. Meanwhile, Saruman creates an army of Uruk-hai to track down and kill the Fellowship. We're just going to leave that there. Because, I don't like to give spoilers away in these, but we'll leave that, and if you've seen it, you know what happens from here. Just a good battle. Good battle. The great battles are yet to come. So, anyway, My thoughts on The Fellowship of the Ring. I thought The Fellowship of the Ring was a great story from beginning to end, and I thought that the movie itself was very, very well done. It was well paced. I know there was the extended edition that came out sometime after that, and oh my god, those are long movies. Like, you thought that the first three movies in their theatrical form are long, the extended editions are longer. Like, don't you, wow, that's a movie marathon in itself. Side note, I hear that Endgame, the latest Avengers movie, is going to be nearly 3 hours long, or over 3 hours long. I have been training for this day. Anyway, uh, Fellowship of the Ring was just a great way to start off the series. You get to know each character individually, and you get to see the journey that they take from. Well, if you look at the Hobbits, from their time in the Shire to coming to Rivendell to trying to get to Mount Doom and Mordor, and then you see the relationships form. Bit of a spoiler warning for you here, but when near the end of the movie, I think there is just a wonderful scene between Boromir and Aragorn as Boromir is dying, and I would have followed you, my king. Oh, that gets me every time. Just the acting in this movie, all three movies, honestly. The acting in this movie is just fantastic, and I love it. I love being drawn into this world, and I couldn't wait to see more when I saw The Two Towers. The Two Towers picks up during Gandalf's battle with the Balrog. Continuing the plot of the Fellowship of the Ring, the film intercuts three storylines. Frodo and Sam continuing their journey towards Mordor to destroy the One Ring, meeting and joined by Gollum, the ring's former owner. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli come to the war-torn nation of Rohan and are reunited with the resurrected Gandalf before fighting the Battle of Helm's Deep, Merry and Pippin escape capture, meet Treebeard the Ent, and help to plan an attack on Isengard. And just a quick, summary of the plot. Awakening from a dream of Gandalf the Grey battling the Balrog, Frodo and his friend Sam find themselves lost in Erenmuel near Mordor. Sure, why not? Let's go with that. I never knew the name of it, but the hell. And soon become aware they're being stalked by Gollum, the former owner of the One Ring. After capturing him, a sympathetic Frodo decides to use Gollum as a guide to Mordor despite Sam's objections. You can really see at this point the ring taking over Frodo and kind of building a wedge between him and Sam, who was his moral compass. I love the character of Samwise Gamgee, and I really hate the fact that I shouldn't say hate the fact, but the fact that Sean Astin wasn't able to make Sask Expo last year kind of obsessed me a little bit. Meanwhile, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli pursue the Uruk-hai to save their companions Merry and Pippin. The Uruk-hai are ambushed by the Rohirrim, the exiled army of Rohan, while the two hobbits escape into Fangorn Forest and encounter the Ent Treebeard. I love Treebeard, especially because he's voiced by John Rhys-Davies, who also provides the role of Gimli. Aragorn's group later meets the Rohirrim and their leader, Éomer, played by Karl Urban. Now, I gotta admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Karl Urban, but he's perfect in this movie. It's along the lines of a Tom Cruise type thing, where it's just, I'm not a huge fan of Tom Cruise, but there are some movies he's so perfect in, like The Last Samurai. Who reveals that their king Theoden is being manipulated by Saruman's servant, Grima Wormtongue, played by Brad Dourif, the voice of frickin' Chucky. I knew something was up there when I found out, Chucky's Grima Wormtongue. Grima Wormtongue, into turning a blind eye to Saruman's forces running rampant in Rohan. While tracking down the hobbits in Fangorn, Aragorn's group encounters Gandalf, who, after succumbing to his injuries while killing Balrog and Moria, has been resurrected as Gandalf the White to help save Middle-earth, because Saruman the White is now, a servant of Sauron. Aragorn's group travels to Rohan's capital city of Edoras, where Gandalf releases Theoden from Saruman's influence and Wormtongue is banished. Another great line. I haven't come to bandy words with a witless worm. Ian McKellen is just excellent as Gandalf, but we'll talk about that later on. After learning about Saruman's plans to wipe out Rohan with his Uruk-hai army, Theoden decides to move his citizens to Helm's Deep, an ancient fortress that has provided refuge to Rohan's people in times past, while Gandalf departs to inquire the aid of the Rohirrim. Aragorn builds a friendship with Theoden's niece, Éowyn, who quickly becomes infatuated with him. Oh, that's a no-no. When the Exodus comes under attack by the war-grinding orcs, Aragorn falls off a cliff into a river and is presumed dead. However, he is found by his horse Brigo and taken to Helm's Deep. Now, this just goes to show you the character of Viggo Mortensen, the man behind the man who played Aragorn, because in this movie and the movie Hidalgo, he kind of formed an instant bond with the horse he was paired with, and I think he bought both horses after filming was completed on this movie and Hidalgo. The Uruk-hai army arrives at Helm's Deep that night, finding a makeshift army of civilians and elves from Lorien waiting for them as a night-long battle follows. Using gunpowder-like explosives on a sewer drain that Wormtongue told Saruman about, the Uruk-hai breached the outer wall and forced the remaining defenders to retreat to their inner castle. At Fangorn, Merry and Pippin have met Gandalf in the forest and convinced Treebeard they were allies. Are brought to an Ent council where the Ents decide not to assist in the war. Pippin tells Treebeard to take them to a route passing Isengard, where they witness the devastation caused to the forest by Saruman's war efforts. An enraged Treebeard summons the Ents, and they storm Isengard, drowning the orcs by breaking the river dam and stranding Saruman in Orthanc. Oh, that scene is both heartbreaking and just, wow, amazing at the same time when Treebeard gets the war council together. At Helm's Deep, Aragorn convinces a despairing Theoden to ride out and meet the Uruks in one last charge. Gandalf and the Rohirrim then arrive at sunrise, turning the tide of the battle and decimating the Uruk-hai, while those remaining flee and are slaughtered. Despite the victory, Gandalf warns that Sauron's retaliation will be terrible and swift. And we haven't talked about Frodo and Sam for a while, so let's talk about that. Meanwhile, becoming loyal to Frodo after taking him and Sam through the dark marshes, Gollum convinces the hobbits of another entrance besides the Black Gate. Frodo and Sam are later captured by the Rangers of Ithilien, led by Faramir, brother to the late Boromir. Lots of mirrors here. No Frank Mir, thankfully. If you're a UFC fan, you'll get that one, because I hate Frank Mir. He's such a... Anyway, after torturing Gollum while inadvertently assisting him in installing in him the notion that he has been betrayed by Frodo, saves him from being killed. Sure, why not? Faramir learns of the One Ring and takes his captives with him to Gondor to win his father's respect. Oh my god, his father. Oh. Yeah, we'll talk about him come the third movie. While passing through the besieged Gondorian city of Osgiliath, Sam reveals that Boromir's death was because he was driven mad by and tried to take the ring. An attacking Nazgul nearly captures Frodo, who momentarily attacks Sam before coming to his senses, forcing Sam to remind him that they are fighting for the good still left in Middle-earth. And we'll just leave that there. Now, I liked all three movies in the series, one a little more than the others, and we'll talk about that. So there's no real movie that I can say was weaker than the other. Like sometimes in a trilogy, you'll get the one that's weaker than most. Like, you know, take a look at the Back to the Future trilogy. As much as I love it, I do think that the third movie is probably the weakest of the three, but still really good. When you take a look at something like the Evil Dead series, again, I can't really pick one that's a weak one if I had to. Maybe the second one. because the first Evil Dead and Army of Darkness were just so good. But even then, Evil Dead 2 was just balls to the wall insane, and I loved it. But to say The Two Towers was the weakest of the three movies would probably do the movie a disservice, because it continued the story on very, very well. We got to know the characters a little more. We had some new characters instilled, like Eowyn, like Gimli, Faramir. Just wonderful, wonderful characters, and I think this just really built on everything that was started in the first movie. And that just led perfectly into the conclusion, and my favorite of the series, and probably one of my favorite movies of all time, that being Return of the King. When Return of the King starts, we get a little backstory to Gollum and how he became obsessed with the ring. Two hobbits, Smeagol and Deagol, are fishing when Deagol discovers the One Ring in the river. Smeagol is ensnared by the ring and kills his friend for it. He retreats into the misty mountains as the ring twists his body and mind until he becomes the creature Gollum. Centuries later, Gandalf leads Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and King Theoden to Isengard, where they reunite with Merry and Pippin. Gandalf retrieves the defeated Saruman's Pelennor. Pippin later looks into the Seeing Stone and is telepathically attacked by Sauron. Gandalf deduces that Sauron will attack Gondor's capital of Minas Tirith. That battle is... that's one thing I didn't talk about. The Battle of Helm's Deep was just so well done, but I think Minas Tirith kind of edges everything out. But we'll talk about that in a second. He rides there to warn Gondor's steward, Denethor. Oh, Denethor, that's who I was talking about earlier. The father of Boromir and Faramir. And he takes Pippin with him. Gollum leads Frodo and Sam to Minas Morgul. The hobbits begin climbing a stair carved in the cliff face that will take them into Mordor via a secret way, unaware that Gollum plans to kill them and take the ring. Saruman's army strikes and overwhelms Osgiliath, forcing Faramir and his garrisons to retreat to Minas Tirith. Gollum disposes of the hobbits' food, blaming Sam. Frodo tells Sam to go home, before Frodo and Gollum continue to the tunnel leading to Mordor, where Gollum tricks him into venturing into the lair of the giant spider Shelob. Okay, I'm afraid of spiders, so every time Shelob comes on the screen, I'm like, is it going? Ah! Is it going? Go away, you big nasty... So if you're ever watching Return of the King with me, watch out for that. Frodo narrowly escapes and confronts Gollum, telling him that he must destroy the ring for both their sakes. Gollum attacks Frodo, but falls down a chasm. Frodo continues on, but Shelob discovers, paralyzes, and blinds him. However, Sam arrives to drive her away. Sam hides as orcs appear and take Frodo with them. Sam follows the orcs to the Tower of Cirith Ungol and frees Frodo so that they can continue their journey. I don't know the names of most of these, so it's going to sound pretty dumb coming from me. Aragorn learns that Elrond that Arwen is dying. Let me try that again. Aragorn learns from Elrond that Arwen is dying, having refused to leave Middle-earth after seeing a vision of her son with Aragorn. Elrond leaves Aragorn Andriel, Isildur's sword. Wow, some of these names. Narsil Reforged so that he can reclaim his birthright, while gaining reinforcement from the dead man of Dunharrow. That one's a little easier. Joined by Legolas and Gimli, Aragorn travels to the path of the dead, recruiting the army of the dead by pledging to release them from their curse Isildur put on them. Faramir is gravely wounded after a futile effort to retake Osgiliath. Believing his son to be dead, Denethor falls into madness. He was already mad to begin with, but I just pushed him over the edge. Gandalf is left to defend the city against the orc army, led by Gorthmog. Sure. As Gorthmog's army forces its way into the city, Denethor attempts to kill himself and Faramir on a pyre. Pippin alerts Gandalf, and they save Faramir, but a burning Denethor leaps to his death from the top of Minas Tirith just before Theoden and his nephew Éomer arrive with the Rohirrim. That was such a scene. Seeing Denethor run down the hallway on fire and just do a header right off the top of a spire. Awesome stuff. During the ensuing battle, they are overwhelmed by the elephant-riding Haradrim. Sure. While the Witch King of Angmar mortally wounds Theoden. Though Theoden's niece Éowyn destroys the Witch King with Merry's help, Theoden dies of his wounds. Aragorn arrives with the army of the dead, who overcome the orcs and win the battle. Aragorn then frees them from the curse. Aragorn decides to lead his army upon the Black Gate as a distraction, so Frodo and Sam can get to Mount Doom. And I'll leave that there, because that's, we're getting to the end of the movie with that one. And oh wow, that scene of Éowyn when she's in battle, and the Witch King is just like, no man can kill me, and I am no man. Stabs him in the face, and I interpret that as loophole. No man, and it's a woman who kills him, so how can you not go wrong there? Like I said before, The Return of the King is by far my favorite movie of the series, and one of my all-time favorite movies. It is probably the longest one in the series, which is why I say, watching this has trained me for Avengers Endgame coming up very, very soon. But it's a fantastic movie, and it does not feel like it's 3 hours long. Like, it goes so fast, it is so well paced, and the ending, it tricks you quite a few times with quite a few different endings, and then it's like, okay, it's over. And now it's over. And now it's over. Is it over? Now it's over? Okay, it's over. And that ending, thinking about that ending, wow, that is just, such a fitting but sad ending at the end of it all. Is just, wow. So yes, The Return of the King is far and away my favorite film of the series. It's just the most well done, and it took a lot of awards that year's Oscar ceremonies. Like, wow, I'll get to that like right now. All three movies in the trilogy were directed by Peter Jackson and were based on the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books by J.R.R. Tolkien. It had a huge list of actors who were in all the movies. Let's see, these are all spanning. So here we go. Elijah Wood, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Bean, Dominic Monaghan, Sean Astin, Ian McKellen, John Rhys-Davies, Orlando Bloom, Billy Boyd. Though that's the Fellowship, just right there. And they were in, well, they say they were in all three movies, but Sean Bean was only in the first one. You had Ian Holm play Bilbo Baggins. Let's see, what else we got here? Ian Holm, if you don't remember, was played by, Ian Holm was in the first Alien movie. You have Liv Tyler, Hugo Weaving, Cate Blanchett, John Noble, Carl Urban, Miranda Otto, David Wenham, who was, I remember him most of all from Van Helsing, and he was also in 300 as well. Andy Serkis as Smeagol and Gollum, Brad Dourif. Who else? Andy Serkis was also the Witch King. And where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I know he's here somewhere. Andy Serkis. Because Christopher Lee, there he is. Christopher Lee, he was on all three movies. So yeah, all-star cast, just an amazing cast for the movie. Music by Howard Shore, cinematography by Andrew Lesnie, production company Wing Films and the Saul Zantac Company, and was distributed by New Line Cinema. The runtime of all three movies was 558 minutes, filmed in New Zealand and the United States, and had a huge budget. I'm not even going to try to. Yeah, $281 million is its budget, and it eclipsed that at the box office. Like, total box office gross between all three movies is over $2 billion. Billion with a B. Let me just find awards here, because it cleaned up at the awards. Sound, special effects. Let's see. The Fellowship of the Ring did a worldwide total of over $871 million. Fellowship, or Two Towers, did 94 million. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It did 926 million, and Return of the King did over $1 billion. Wow. As far as Rotten Tomatoes goes, Two Towers got the best reception of them all. Fellowship got 91%, Two Towers got 95%, and Return of the King got 93%. The three films together were nominated for a total of 30 awards, of which they won 17, a record for any movie trilogy. 3 nominations for The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, and Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, along with the single nomination for The Battle of Five Armies, brings the series total to 37 nominations. Fellowship earned 13 nominations, the most of any film at the 74th Annual Academy Awards, winning 4. The Return of the King won in every category in which it was nominated, settling the current Oscar record for highest clean sweep, and its 11 Academy Award wins ties the record held by Ben-Hur and Titanic. Return of the King became only the second sequel to win the Oscar for Best Picture after The Godfather Part 2, naturally, because, greatest movie ever made, in my opinion. So, Fellowship of the Ring was nominated for... Well, all 3 movies were nominated for Best Picture, but Return of the King won. For Director, Fellowship and Return of the King were nominated, but only Return of the King won. Best Supporting Actor, they got a nomination for Fellowship. Adapted Screenplay, nominated twice. Return of the King won that one. Art Direction, nominated 3 times. Return of the King won that one. Cinematography, Fellowship won that one. And that was the only time the trilogy was nominated. Costume Design, nominated for Fellowship, but won for Return of the King. Film Editing, it was nominated all 3 times, but won for Return of the King. Makeup, it won twice for Fellowship and Return of the King, but was not nominated for Two Towers for some reason. It was nominated for Original Score twice and won both times. Original Song, nominated for Fellowship, won for Return of the King. Sound Mixing, it was nominated all 3 times, but only won for the Return of the King. It was only nominated for Sound Editing for Two Towers, and it won that one. And all 3 times was nominated and won for Best Visual Effects, so I think it was very well earned. I love this trilogy. Like I said, it is one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and I think Peter Jackson did a fantastic job of bringing this to life when everyone said that it couldn't be done. And I think it found a perfect home at New Line Cinema as well. I don't think any other production company would have had the gumption to put this on screen, but New Line did. But New Line has always been about taking chances, It's basically the house that Freddy Krueger built, and if you ask me, if it hadn't been for Freddy Krueger, there wouldn't have been Lord of the Rings. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate that. Which one is your favorite out of the 3 movies? Let me know in the comments section down below. You already know what my favorite is. Don't forget to share this video anywhere you can with all your fellow Tolkien fans. Over my shoulder right here, you can see a link to last week's episode where it is the live season premiere, talking about everything that's happened over the past 2 months. and the future of this channel and of Irish Bandit Revolution. In the description down below, you're going to see a link to my Redbubble store where you can pick up all your Irish Bandit Revolution merchandise. We have t-shirts, stickers, of course. We have leggings, coffee cups, travel mugs. We have cases for iPhone and Samsung, iPad, everything your heart desires. Be like Taylor Fisher and get your official Irish Bandit merchandise. And also, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. We are growing in numbers, and I'd really like to see that. And if you're already subscribed, tap that bell. Maybe you'll be notified whenever I go live with a brand new episode. That's totally up to YouTube. Now, let me check the old schedule because I've totally forgotten what next week's episode is, and I don't want to cut. So be sure to join me for next week's episode where we will be talking about... Here we go. Yes, we're going to be doing another episode of Rank It, where I am ranking one of the best FX series there is. Not Name the Shield or Sons of Anarchy. We're going to be ranking all 7 seasons of the great Denis Leary helmed show, Rescue Me. So join me next week for that episode. Guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you again next week for another edition of Irish Bandit Revolution. I'm the Bandit, and I'm out of here. Take care.